We only hear the name of Zacchaeus once in the Bible, and that's today. You ever wonder why we didn't hear about him again? It's because he said to Jesus and in front of everyone, if I've extorted anything from anyone, I shall repay it 4 times over. He was probably working like crazy the rest of his life, so you never hear about him again, right? But what a huge heart. He knew he had a lot to make up for. I've told you before that hopefully when we get to heaven, we'll all have plenty of time with Jesus to ask him lots of questions. And one of the questions I want to ask our Lord is, Lord, how did you say his name? What was the look in your face? And what was your expression? Because you had him at that first word, Zacchaeus. Now try to understand the situation. Zacchaeus was wealthy. He had lots of money. He was doing very well for himself. But he was not happy because he had no friends. That's why they wouldn't make any room for him. When they saw Zacchaeus walking there, Jesus coming in the crowd and knew that he was a tax collector and he was working for the Romans despised him because he was unfaithful to them. He was like in no man's land. They would see Zacchaeus and say, boo, get out of here, Zacchaeus. And so he had to climb a sycamore tree because he had no friends. I mean, he was wealthy, but he had no friends. And when our Lord saw him, he looked up in the tree, and I think he said his name like this, Zacchaeus. He was happy to see Zacchaeus. Nobody else was happy to see Zacchaeus. And probably Zacchaeus hadn't heard his name like that since his mother called his name Zacchaeus, because she loved him, and Jesus loved him. And he had him at that moment by calling out his name. Now, our Lord could have said, oh, Zacchaeus, why don't you stay up in that tree? Nobody likes you. There's a reason they don't like you, because you ripped them all off. Boo, Zacchaeus. Boo, Zacchaeus. Jesus could have said that. That would not have saved his soul. He would have become even more bitter and more harsh and more depressed. But Jesus gave him a way out of his misery and of his sadness by loving him. And there's a very important lesson there for all of us. I've searched the commandments in the Bible, and I've never found the commandment, thou shalt be right. Jesus never gave us the commandment, thou shalt be right. No, he gave us the 10 commandments. He gave us commandments to love one another and forgive one another. And yes, you want to know the truth and you got to be right and all that, but that doesn't win souls. What wins souls is the love and affection that Jesus has for others and that we have for others. And so I think that's the story of Zacchaeus. I would like to see it on video. I'd like to see the expression of the Lord's face. I'd like to see that interaction. Because the Lord was using that theater that day to teach a lesson to everyone around them, including St. Luke and St. Matthew and St. Mark and St. John, who would later record these things. There's an old Aesop's fable. It's about the wind and the sun. Have you ever heard it? The wind and the sun. There's a guy walking down the street. Let's call it Michigan Avenue in January. And he had his overcoat on and a muffler. And the wind said to the sun, I'll bet I can make him take his coat off faster than you can. And the sun said, it's a deal. So the sun went and hid behind a cloud, and the wind began to blow on this man. And the more he blew on the man, the more he held on to his coat and onto his scarf. And finally, the wind was exhausted, so it went away, and the sun came out and started just to smile on that guy, just to beam on that guy. And the temperature went up, and little by little, the guy took his muffler off, and he took his coat off. There's a lesson in all of that for us. We have to love people into perfection, love people into generosity. And by doing that, we have to make a lot of sacrifice on our own part to put ourselves in second place, our Lord and the others in first place. Every single soul you meet, no matter how terrible their actions have been, has something good in them. And our Lord Jesus Christ suffered and died for every single person on the face of the earth. And it's up to us to let people know that message is true by how we treat people.